Can you remember a time when you had to stand up for what you believed in? In September 1978, I was 15. Came home after completing my probationary period for my aircraft engineer's apprenticeship. First time I felt optimistic and hopeful that my future might be okay. That was when I had to stand up for what I believed in. I'll come back to that shortly. First, my story. My story started way back in 1930. In the 30s in Italy, if you fell pregnant out of wedlock, the community backlash was awful. The shame, embarrassment, and humiliation the community projected is something you carried with you for a long, long time. My grandmother fell pregnant out of wedlock. That's how my father came to be. He was born in July 1930. My grandmother blamed my father for the shame, embarrassment, and humiliation she felt from the community and made sure my father never forgot that feeling. When my father was 22 years old, he said to his mum, "I'm going to Belgium to work in the mines. I send all my money back to you. Use half the money for yourself and the family, the other half saved for me for my return." 3 years later, in 1955, he returns and asks for his money. His mum responds by saying, "How dare you even think you can ask? You're an embarrassment to this family. I wish I never had you. Is no money." How do you respond to that? My father was devastated, humiliated, and heartbroken. Out of anger, he bought a one-way ticket to Australia. Meanwhile, on the other side of the country, Maria, my mum, was living in Sicily. She experienced abuse from her father and grandfather. It was common in the 50s for immigrants to want to meet ladies from their home country. Maria heard of this, found my father through a dating agency, and started writing to him. 2.5 years later, Maria buys a one-way ticket to travel to a country she'd never been, to marry a man she'd never met. And that's what I call courage. Maria arrives in Melbourne on Boxing Day 1960. Her first night in the land of opportunity, the lucky country, Maria rolls over, cries herself to sleep. The next day, Maria insists that they marry as they had sex out of wedlock. The following year, they have their first boy. My father was a jealous, possessive man who would control Maria, move any time she made a friend. We moved 13 times in the next 13 years. Maria found life difficult. By now, depression is setting in. She could not bear the loneliness of having no friends and moving all the time. Maria pleads with my father and said, "I've come here to make a life with you. I want to spend time with you. Please spend one day per week with me. I can't stand the loneliness." My father became angry and said, "I'm working hard for the family. Why do you not appreciate what I do for us?" How much pain must a woman be in to be 7 months pregnant with her second child, decide to take her own life? As Maria removed the last corrugated sheet covering the well, she goes to jump into the well as my father grabbed her by the hair, threw her to the ground. Feeling powerless, Maria turned her focus towards the pregnancy. She hoped having a girl would bring her some joy and happiness. At 4:07 p.m. on the 9th of February 1963, Maria was disappointed, giving birth to a baby boy. That boy was me. My mum's wish for a baby girl happened on the 15th of May 1966. She gave birth to a beautiful, healthy baby girl, Anna Maria, my sister. In the 60s, it was common for mothers to prop up a bottle with a pillow while feeding a baby and leave the room. On the 2nd of August 1966, she did just that. She gave Anna Maria her bottle, propped it up with a pillow, and left the room. When she came back, Anna Maria was choking on the milk. Mum became frantic, calling out for my dad. By the time the ambulance got Anna Maria to the hospital, some 45 minutes away, Anna Maria had choked and died. She overheard the doctors saying they will need an autopsy. As she couldn't speak English, she thought the doctors were blaming her. Can you imagine the pain my mum must have been in? Losing her baby girl, feeling responsible for her death, feeling isolated with no friends, and living with a controlling, abusive man. 6 months later, just after my 4th birthday, I was home alone with my mum. Couldn't find her anywhere. I searched for her. "Mama, Mama." She did not respond. I found her on the bedroom floor, unconscious, with an empty pill bottle beside her. I pushed, "Pull, Mama, wake up." Scared, I did not know what to do. Exhausted, I fell asleep on my mum. My dad found us when he came home from work. He called an ambulance and got her to the hospital where they pumped her stomach. To attempt to kill yourself in that time, they called you mad. My mum had lost her voice to my father and the system. She was then locked up in Mayday Hills Mental Institution. As I was leaving Mayday Hills, I can remember looking at my mum through a 12 by 12-inch glass window. I remember feeling her pain, her despair. She just wanted someone to love her. She wanted to come home with us. By the next year, my mum was on psychiatric medication. Both her and my dad were alcoholics. They both went into detox, and I got to stay at the O'Briens. I can still remember the smell of the mothballs in the room I slept in. Mrs. O'Brien was kind. She felt my fear. She gets down on one knee and asks me what I wanted to do for the day. She asked me, how cool was that? No one had ever asked me before. She took me bareback horse riding. It was so much fun sitting on that horse. For one day, Mrs. O'Brien made me feel like a king, like I belonged. She was kind, gentle, and loving. Once we returned home, we found all our furniture removed from the house and stored in the garage. As I was the smallest child, my father put me through the window so I could unlock the doors. Not long after, 3 men pulled up. I could see my father was angry as he confronted the men. A fight broke out. He was no match for the men. My mother then pulls a knife from the front of her dress and went the men. They knocked her out cold with one punch to the face. I had to do something, so I grabbed an axe. I go to fight the 3 men. One of the men grabbed me by the head and said, son, a fight's not with you. We were evicted. Miss O'Brien allowed us to sleep in a dairy until we found suitable housing. It was difficult for my mum being isolated and not allowed any friends, so I became her support person. This made school very difficult. We'd go to school for a day, then miss 2 days. One of the kids would help me catch up, then I'd miss 2 more days. They'll help me again. By the 3rd time I missed 2 or 3 days, they wouldn't want to help me. New kid would jump in enthusiastically. The same thing would happen until they realised I missed too much schooling. I think I missed about 60% of my schooling to stay home and care for my mum. By now, my mum's losing her mind and starting to hear voices. I'm now 6 years old, and Mum frankly asked me to help her. Eugene, please help me. Pray with me. We're all going to die. The world is going to end. Please pray with me. Mum believed that we're all going to die by drowning. Couldn't swim, you see. I was so scared I could not show my mum how scared I was, and she was more scared than me. So I get down on my knees, terrified, and pray with her. This went on month after month after month. My mum was in and out of Mayday Hills Mental Institution. On this day, I'm visiting my mum at Mayday Hills. I'm now 12 years old. They asked me if I could interpret for my mum. After some basic questions about health and general well-being, I'm asked to ask my mum if there's anything she would like us to know. I asked my mum, she said, yes, there is. Can you please tell the nurse that I would like my husband to stop raping me? I don't like it. The nurse asked, is there anything else? My mum said no, and the nurse said, see you next time. The sad truth was what my mum said was true. It messes with your mind when you know what is happening is wrong, but the mental health system did nothing. So what are you meant to think when you're 12? It really messes with your mind and your sexuality. Fast forward to the spring of 1978. I'm now 15 years old. This was the day I felt optimistic and hopeful about my future, passing my probationary period for my apprenticeship. As I enter my backyard, I can hear my mum and dad fighting. My father pushed my mum off a set of stairs. She lands on the concrete path behind her. That was it. I was finally old enough. I couldn't let this happen anymore. Grabbed my father, threw him up against the wall and said, that is the last time you will ever hurt my mother. Moments later, he comes out holding a 12-inch knife. I remember looking at my father and believing that he would stop, that he would not hurt me. Have you ever felt that level of certainty? So I stood there. Before I could take my next breath, he strikes the knife at my heart, cutting my chest as I fall to the ground. He strikes again and again. He wanted me dead. As I look up at my father, my mind could not comprehend what was happening. My certainty turned to fear, then terror. I thought I was about to die at the hands of my father. I somehow managed to get away and get the police. 8 to 10 years jail for attempted murder, they said. As the police handcuffed my father to the bed, Mum led me to the other room and said, "Eugene, you will not charge Dad with attempted murder." My sole purpose since I was 4 was to protect and care for my mum. You know how worthless you are when your own father wants to kill you and your mum supports him. I was never more lost than in that moment. My inner star stopped shining that day. I don't know what took more of my light. My dad trying to kill me, or my mum supporting him, or the police and the system doing nothing. That day I took on the belief that if I stand up for what I believe in, I will die. That I'm not worthy of being supported, and I'll be abandoned no matter what I do. Fast forward to 2020. I'm fired from my executive role, have an argument with my son, so I decide to leave my home, get a phone call saying, "This is on me, I need to fix it." I felt I couldn't go back home. I was so lost I did not know what to do. I lost my mind and my marriage was over. On the 6th of July, I asked for help and the doctor prescribed me 5 Valium tablets. 45 minutes after taking my first Valium ever, I wake up crying. Felt like someone opened the gateway to hell and said, "Here you go, Eugene, deal with all your pain." I cried for 3 hours. Exhausted, I finally fell asleep at 3:30 a.m. on the 7th of July. I woke up at 9 a.m. with this overwhelming pain in my heart. Something was very wrong. Felt like my heart was going to break into a million pieces. At 11:59 a.m., I sent 5 messages saying, "I am not okay." I never allowed anyone to see my vulnerability or my pain. So how could they know I needed help? As my children said, "If we knew how much pain you're in, Dad, would have been with you in a heartbeat." I'm grateful for my children, the strength they showed through what must have been an awful time, seeing their father lose his mind and then project his anger. At my most painful moment, I could not show my pain or my vulnerability. Instead, I projected my anger. So no one came. At 3:42 p.m. after an argument, I decided to take my own life. If it wasn't for my son's quick thinking, the police would never have found me. I would not be here today to share my story. In my experience, if your needs are not met, your development not provided, and you had some challenging experiences at any of the early developmental stages, then you'll activate 3 of the greatest human fears. The fear that you're not lovable, that you're not good enough, and that you do not belong. I got all the human fears. I was not loved, I was not good enough, and I did not belong anywhere. I recreated the same belief as when I was 15 years old. The difference this time wasn't my father trying to kill me, it was me. Since 1996, I've been searching for that feeling when I was 5 years old. I've completed over 3,000 hours of therapy and personal development work so I could feel worthy, so I could feel that feeling I felt when I was 5 years old. Would you believe it was ineffective? The more work I completed, the more I couldn't handle my life, until I admitted myself into a private psychiatric hospital for 3 weeks. This is where I leveraged my past learnings with my hospital expertise to finally complete my puzzle. I had to survive my world. I was so lonely and built an armor so thick no one could penetrate it. My breakthrough came when I took the armor off, looked at my experiences, understood the meaning I gave them, looked at how they affected my life, radically accepted them, then allowed myself to feel my pain and to forgive them, and to forgive myself. I let no one see my demons, my pain, my fear, my shame, and the worthlessness I felt. Now it has tormented me my whole life. I felt if you really knew who I was, you would all reject me. The only way I felt I could survive was to be strong. I had to be the problem solver, the fixer of all things. That was all I knew until I lost everything. My executive role, my children's respect, my marriage, my self-respect, my mind, and what little dignity I had left. I searched for answers outside of myself and in others, but nothing I wanted was out there. I hoped someone would come and save me from my hell, but no one came. All I wanted was someone to love me, to belong somewhere, to have friends and do normal stuff like play and have fun. You don't do over 3,000 hours of therapy and personal development because you like it. I did it to find peace. I had to radically accept my truth, which was difficult to do. My truth was that my father tried to kill me. My mother tried killing me. My mum tried to take her own life 5 times. My mum supported my father when he tried to kill me for supporting her. My sexuality was taken from me when I was 12. I was never invited to or attended one party, never had one friend, missed over 60% of my schooling. My purpose was to care and protect my mum. Saw my mum being raped. And to know the world knew what was happening and they did nothing was hard to deal with. When I accepted my truth, completed my puzzle, something amazing happened. Someone did turn up for me. Would you believe it? Someone did turn up for me. I turned up for me. Who would have thought the person that I've been waiting for was me? I'm responsible for my own emotions and my own behavior. I learned that I must love myself first before anyone can love me. If I can heal, you can too, no matter what has happened to you. I realized that you cannot get rid of your experiences or your trauma. What you do is find the meaning you gave them, neutralize them, and then turn them into your superpowers. I found my inner peace. I've lost 16 kilos. My blood pressure's plummeted from 210/130 at its highest to no longer needing blood pressure medication. Who would have thought one act of kindness when I was 5 years old changed my life? If it wasn't for that one act of kindness, I would not have known what to look for. I would have given up a long, long time ago. I am worthy, I am lovable, and I do belong. My grandmother hurt my father, and my father hurt my mum and me. My great-grandfather and grandfather hurt my mum hurt me. My mum and dad hurt me, and I hurt my partner and my children, and for that, I'm truly sorry. My message worth sharing is we should judge a little less and love a little more, because hurt people till you stop and love yourself first. Thank you.